OFW, Overseas Filipino Workers. I'm sure you're quite familiar with the word. These are people, Filipino people, that go overseas, migrate to another country to find a job, to have a living. According to the Philippine Overseas Administration, the deployment of Filipino domestic workers abroad is increasing year to year. Realizing the number of Filipino workers going abroad just makes me think about how much these people have sacrificed to make a good living for themselves and to provide a lot for their families. As a person like myself being in another country abroad, have you noticed any difference on how you live life than back then when you were once in the Philippines? I am sure that people watching this and working abroad must be experiencing or at least have experience of being homesick, where you just think about your hometown and think about of how far and separated you are from the people you've left behind. This comes up to the word Philippine diaspora. Tell me, have you ever heard the word Philippine diaspora? Perhaps you have seen or heard about this word, but allow me to explain it to you. Diaspora, stated by the dictionary, originally is a term that came from the Greek word to scatter about. Mixing this with the Philippine diaspora, to put it simply, it is the dispersion or spread of any people from their original homeland, stated by the Oxford Dictionary. Moving on with the word Philippine diaspora, there is a similar situation that can be present in a story or play, if I should say, which is called Waiting, made by Ron Darvin. Ron Darvin, who was an instructor and researcher at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, whose research focuses on the literacies and educational performance of recently migrated Filipino students. Before moving to Canada, he was a teacher of literature, cultural studies, and academic writing at the Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines. He wrote the play Waiting originally for an audience of teachers and administrators in Canada so that they could understand the different challenges that some Filipinos go through. Now, allow me to read the summary of the whole play of Waiting by Ron Darvin. The play first sets off by introducing one of our characters in the story, Isabel, a 41-year-old hardworking mother who was first a caregiver to a family named Choi and became an employee for a place called Tim Hortons. Originally, Isabel was once a teacher back at her home in the Philippines, but realizing how much salary is paid, it still wasn't enough for the family to make a good living. She moved to Vancouver in hopes that she would be able to get a good amount of money to provide for her son Miguel. Miguel, the son of Isabel, is a 15-year-old boy who has recently moved in with his mom to stay with her in Vancouver. They both have been living there for quite some time, Isabel living there for 8 years now. As the story progresses, we get to see the perspective of Isabel living abroad, far away from her family. She believed that moving here to Canada would be able to help sustain her family and make a good life. She also decided that the rest of her family come join her and make a living here instead in Canada. As years go by, it took so much time to get everything ready, from papers down to money. It was not an easy job. Even her husband, Roberto, didn't like the decision his wife was making. He would go off to saying nakakahiya, knowing that from a teacher, Isabel would move to another country just to become a caregiver. But Isabel still went no matter the hardships, as long as she was able to provide for her family. Roberto, the husband, was a salesperson for pharmaceuticals, where he'd go to doctors and talk about this wonder drug and how it can cure anything, from migraines to acne. Knowing that Isabel wanted to move to Canada, he first didn't like the idea of it because of the shame that would be present around them. From Miguel's side, he was only 7 years old when his mom left for Canada. From then on, he would only receive phone calls and gifts sent to him from his mom. As years passed, he is 15 now and finally got to move into Canada with his mom. From then on, he would have thought that being finally there with his mom would finally make a good change for once. As the play goes deeper into the story, we can now see the different challenges and feelings to how both Isabel and Miguel felt when moving into Canada. Isabel, feeling of homesickness, she would usually look upon her family photos and think of how much she would have wanted to be together as a whole family. In times, she would have a long day at work and would sometimes knock on Miguel's door, wanting to ask him about how was school, how his day go, and wanting him to speak to her in Filipino just so that she can feel like she is at home. Miguel moving to Canada notices so much has changed in the way he has to live from now on. The food that he had to eat, the way he had to speak, and how he had to fully adapt to the environment he was in. During the whole story, Miguel has been thinking about how life was different back in the Philippines when he stayed with his lola, where the food there would be so much food, and how going to school wouldn't make him feel out of place. Miguel going to school now, he wouldn't be able to answer simple questions even though he read about it, in worry because he would get laughed on again, like what happened to him months back when reading a hard pronounced word when he first came to Canada for education. Sacrifice is what Isabel has thought it was all about. Blessed are the poor, for theirs is in the kingdom of heaven, is the line she would always hear back then at church. That sacrificing what she had was to make a good living and make a better life for the family. In the near end of the play, she would say to her son, "Just wait for it, anak. Everything will be alright." Miguel, hearing those words, respond by saying, "Inay, all these years I've been waiting. Tell me, please tell me, when does soon begin?" Reading all about this story just captures the daily life challenges most Filipino workers would feel when working abroad. It breaks my heart that knowing these people can feel so much pain when being separated from the people they love and from the people that they've left behind in their original country. I asked my parents how they felt when they moved to another country when becoming overseas Filipino workers. They told me that in some cases they would feel homesick and they would feel sad because they feel far away from their families. They feel separated. They couldn't see them but only through the screen of their phones. But even so, they still kept going and they still kept working hard for providing for the family. And that having us, me and my siblings by their side, still gave them the drive to keep going and keep working for the family. The story shows how so much emotional damage can occur to a family that sacrificed a lot to make a decent life for the family. How much they had to endure, how much they had to wait for that life. This is a story of Waiting by Ron Darvin. It is an amazing story to read on, and it is certainly an inspiring one at that as well. A present literary technique that is found in this story is called irony, where there is a marked difference between what is said and what is meant, as well as to what is expected and what occurs. In this story specifically, I can say that the story uses the type of irony called dramatic irony, where the character, usually the main character, is mistaken or confused, while as for us, audience or readers, we are fully aware of the situation that they are in. Reading the story as the reader, we can identify the reality as to why the characters is in that situation, because as readers or as the audience, we are exposed to the different reasons in the story on how and why it has happened. As I conclude this video, I would like to say that reading a story like this made me realize that life, as it is right now, will always be challenging, and that sacrifices are usually made in hopes to meet what people desire for the better good. Decisions will always have to be made, and there will always be different outcomes to them. Live your life to what you truly think is right, and think about how this will not only affect you, but the people you love as well. Because in the end, you might just be waiting for something that will never meet. That is all for my video. Thank you for watching till the end. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on that notification bell. And we will see you on our next video.